Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stitching Tales. I am Johanna Lundström of The Last Stitch.
And I am Malena Hjerpe of Hazelhen Patterns.
And today we're going to talk about pattern fitting. And again, we're going to pick a really specific topic. Right. And what is it we're going to talk about today, Malena?
Yeah, today we're going to talk about how to adjust your pattern for your height. If you need to do a tall adjustment or petite adjustment, and how to do it, where to do it, and or if you actually want to change your design and change the length of your garment. Those are like two separate things. So we are gonna deep dive in this today.
Yeah, because as you say, it all depends. I mean, there's no one way of doing it. It all depends on also, of course, how your body is proportioned, right? So because one of the things that I think we talk about both in our book and we talk about you and I as well is the fact that even though you may be taller than average, it doesn't mean that that length is evenly distributed between all your body parts. So it might deviate, and also, of course, different pattern companies will have different length where they have based their base model or base sizing. So a waist might be placed one spot on one pattern, and another pattern brand, they might draft for a person that is a little bit shorter or a little bit longer. So there is no one way of doing it, as we always say, because we are all unique body types and we all will deviate from whatever type of pattern that we are choosing. And it also gets more complicated as well when you have shape designs, for instance. I mean, if something is straight, then it's going to be less of a problem. So I know that you say in a book Fit for Knits, and you talk about this often, is that height and a length should be the one thing you start with, right, when you adjust the pattern. Why is that?
Yeah, because before you start to adjust the width, you need to place the width in the correct place, basically. I mean, if you want to do any adjustments to the waist width, make it smaller or bigger, but it needs to be placed correctly first, because otherwise you are going to adjust it to your lower waist or higher waist. Like, it is not going to be placed in the right area. So that's the reason why we always, like, in general, recommend to start with adjusting the heights, because then you get the width correct, and then you can adjust the width because they are in the correct places. And I think one thing that can be really useful, because usually most pattern designers have how to choose your correct size. Well, they have a couple of measurements that you can check. Usually they should always write what height the pattern is drafted for, so you have an indication of, like, are you shorter or taller compared to that. But usually you just give a couple of width measurements that you follow. So it doesn't really indicate the length measurements. But if you buy or borrow a book from the library about how to do pattern constructions, like basic patterns, like really those basic steps, like how to construct
draft the pattern from scratch, basically, based on your body measurements.
Yeah, they usually have this really long body measurement list. I mean, then it is shoulder width, it is neckline circumference, how you say that. It is the length, and here is like the important things then for the length adjustments, like your length from the neck down to your waist, how and where the hip and seat are placed, how far below the waist are they, the inseam of your leg, how long legs you have, and just compare it, because usually, I'm not saying all, but usually most companies follow ish kind of the same body measurements. I mean, there are variations, of course, but they usually have kind of ish similar. So then you can give an indication, like, do I have long legs compared to the standardized body? I'm using biggest air quotes now. Like, do I have longer, shorter legs compared to that measurement? Well, then I know then I know how to do my adjustments. Or do I have and here it's a little bit, of course, difficult to measure your back length. You kind of need a frame to help you also from where to measure and where your waist is. Like, your torso length, is that longer or shorter compared to the standardized body? Then you know a little bit more, like, okay, I'm maybe have longer legs compared to these body measurements, but I have a shorter torso. But my average, like my height is the same as these pattern companies. So you might think that, no, I don't need to make an adjustment because it is according to my height. But I mean, yeah, you can have longer, shorter torso, you can have longer, shorter legs. So it's good to know your body measurements in this sense, because then you know how it varies compared to the standardized body. And nothing is good or bad here. It is what it is. You just need to know, so you know how you can adapt the pattern according to your body. So that's why it's good to know a little bit, like how you differ compared to this. And if you don't know where to find these types of measurements, books or anything, we can give a link to Alvanon. They are a company that do fitting dummies, and they also have lots of different sizes, like body measurements, more petite body measurements, tall, I think, curvy, or like they are not just this one measurement list that everyone will fit into. They have a little bit subdivisions as well, and they have for men's and kids as well. So we can give you a link in the show notes to this company, and they are quite big on the market. Not everyone obviously is using them. Now I'm talking in the fashion industry, but quite a lot of big brands are actually using their fitting dummies when they try on garments. So they use their body measurements. So it is quite a good list to check out and
That's
to
a
follow.
really good. We're definitely going to link that for sure. Such a good tip. I had no idea about that, but I agree with you. It's so nice when you get those really thorough pattern making books, when you see all these measurements and you see all the variations. And as someone, this is a topic that is dear to my heart, because as someone who is height challenged by Swedish standards, not, I know globally maybe I'm not that short, but I am 160, which I think is about 1 foot 3 inches, I think. And in Sweden, most not garment companies, clothing companies, they serve a person that is 168 centimeters, which I think is around 5'6", which is
That's
Malena.
exactly my height.
That's exactly your dream goals. So
easy. But I have 3 centimeter longer arms, so usually they are a little bit short. Blouses are a little bit short on me.
So yeah, that's such a good example. I mean, even though you are the exact height that the majority of clothing companies in Sweden make their patterns for, still you have to do changes. And it's the same. And again, I also get how these skeletal, what do you say, your bones, how they are constructed.
Skeleton, yeah.
Skeleton, right. Because I think some parts of the body, they have to be a certain size to be fully functional. So for instance, the length between my waist and my crotch area, that is the average of most like 106 centimeters person. So I imagine that there has to be a certain size for that area to fully function. But that means, of course, that the other parts are definitely much shorter. So even for a short person, for instance, my waist is so high up, it's like literally underneath my breast. That's where my waist is. And then I have this long crotch area, clearly, from the waist down, and then my legs are relatively short, but not super short. So that provides a lot of different fitting challenges for me. And the biggest revelation for me was, which I know I've talked about previously, is the fact that I'm quite curvy. So at least used to, when I was younger, my waist was quite narrow. And my tummy has always been fuller, and that means that when I buy something fitted, maybe a dress or a blouse, the widest part of that will end up on the most narrow part of the blouse will end up on the most widest part on me, which is my tummy. So before I realized that this was a fitting issue, I felt so self-conscious about the fact that I could never button a blouse over my tummy. And also when I bought dresses, they kept riding up because there was not enough width at that area. So just a little tweak now. I always adjust everything I sew myself. It's just really no. It's just that I have to, as you say, you have to figure out where I am the most narrow and the widest.
Yeah, where you differ in height compared to the standardized.
Yeah.
And this is. Do you have on my patterns? I have a lengthen and shorten line, like a suggestion on where you should lengthen or shorten, like t-shirts or the joggers that I have. I have it because customers have asked for it. So it's like, okay, here is my suggestion. But it depends on your body. It really does.
I know.
I mean, for you, for example, I have placed on the t-shirts, I have placed it just below the chest. So it's like in between chest height and waist height. So there I have added it. And that would be perfect for you then, because that's where you are shorter. So that's where you want to shorten your pattern then. But you wouldn't want to shorten the length between the waist and the bottom hem, because that sounds like you are following the regular height, so to say.
Right.
Or for example, on trousers, maybe the front crotch and back crotch, or front rise, back rise area, there you don't want to lengthen or shorten it anything, but it's the inseam on the leg that you want to shorten. So this is why it's so important to know your body compared to the standardized body.
Yeah.
It's gonna sound like find the right fault on your, but it's not that. It's just you need to know so you can know how to and where to adapt the pattern so it suits you.
Exactly. And also be understanding, of course, on any pattern company or clothing company, because they have to find the, what you say, the most common denominator.
Yeah,
so that's why
ground.
They have to decide that, okay, we have to decide that on our sizing, the chest will be at this point, or the knee will be at this point. And I also have length adjustment lines on my pattern, because it does help so much. And that was one of the things that I was absolutely, when I released my third common pattern, that it's going to be there. And because even though, as you say, they might not be the right spot for everyone, it means that it's much easier, because then you have that line to use as your gauge, and then you can either move your line up a centimeter or two, or half an inch, or whatever you need, or down. But just the fact that it is there, to me, it's so helpful. So I have several lines on all my patterns, and also on pants as well. I have one line above the knee and one below the knee as well, because usually you have to distribute height adjustment on several places. And I guess the longer the garment, the more places you will probably need to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a really tight-fitted t-shirt, for example, then if it's just a little bit, then you can just do it in one place. But if it's a lot you want to adjust, then you want to do it in different places. Like, for example, on the, how do you say, straight over your, like, front width, back width, armhole depth, basically. You want to adjust maybe a little below chest and above waist there, and maybe a little bit below waist as well. So it might be actually in 3 places you want to adjust, if the pattern has like a shaped waist. So the width is different in all the different places, because you want to have them in correct. If it's just an oversized t-shirt that is like completely straight in the side seam, then it doesn't matter if you want to make the bodice longer or shorter. The armhole you might still need to adjust if you want to make that longer or shorter, but the body length, then you can actually just add it at the bottom. because the side seam is straight, so it doesn't matter if you chop it up in 3 places or in one, or if you just add it, like make a wider hem allowance basically, if the side seam is straight. Now if you want to do like really big adjustment, for example you want to make a t-shirt into a dress or a tunic, if it's really oversized and the width is still like it is bigger compared to your widest place, your hips basically, then no problem, you can just make it straighter. But usually if it's a little bit more tight fitted garment, you need to obviously accommodate for the width of your hips as well, so you can't just lengthen it and keep the same width on the t-shirt. So but here this is a design adjustment, it's not a tall or petite adjustment, so this differs. So yeah, it's a little bit different ways of doing it.
Yeah, and sometimes also when you have a specific design, for instance, maybe you have bootcut pants, for instance, that they are flared out a little bit, or if your sleeve is usually most sleeves get narrower at the wrist, and if you just add length at the bottom of the hem of those, they on the narrow sleeve, the wrist is going to be more and more narrow, the more width.
Yeah, if you continue the line.
Continue narrow down. And the same with the boot cut is if you follow that A-line out, it's going to be wider and wider. So you will effectively not just add length, you will also change the proportions of a garment. So that's why it's so important, as you say, when as soon as it's not something very straight, basically, if it has some type of shaping or design feature like that, you will have to add lengths at other spots unless you want to change. So it's not just about fit, it's also like preserving the original design of a garment if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and usually if it's like for example, an A-line skirt, I mean, then it doesn't matter that much. Yeah, the total hem will be a little bit wider. If you just continue lengthening those lines, it might be fine as well. I mean, it's still an A-line skirt. But for a bootleg, that a couple of centimeters or inches in the opening of the leg can make quite a big difference. And also, usually a bootleg, it's a little bit sensitive where it starts to become wider, basically the knee placement. So then you maybe want to adjust that just to get it exactly right. And this is, of course, also a little bit of a matter of opinion where you prefer to have it. So, I mean, it could be a little bit design change as well. If you prefer it to start it lower or higher, you can obviously adjust it based on your likes as well, of course. But if you have, for example, a very shaped leggings, tights, where there is like shaped for the knee, the more narrow compared to your calf, then you really need to do the height adjustment length, maybe in several places, to really get it right.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was thinking also, I do like, I know some pattern companies do that, and I think that should be a good standard, is that it's always nice, if you look close to the pattern, you can usually find that they have a notch or a marking at the waist, and sometimes at the knees, and sometimes the apex, which is like the tip of the how do you say, the highest part. Bust point, right. And those measurements are extremely helpful. I would say those are the three, in my opinion, three key measurements to make things easier. I personally don't mark elbows, maybe. Do you? I've not seen that as much. I don't know. But I guess that's not probably a major fitting issues. But
no, I usually
what are some
don't.
golden spots?
I actually never do apex as well, because it's just, I mean, it depends on you, where your highest bust point is. So it can vary quite a lot. But yeah, waist. And usually, I mean, notches can be two reasons. It's just so it's easier to line up when you pin the pieces together, or actually to mark specific points, like here is the knee, here is the waist. Usually you do that anyway. I mean, you place a notch there just because it's the most convenient way, I would say, or easiest way, natural way. But sometimes you actually, as a pattern maker, for production, you can also, you think about this as well, that you don't want to place a notch really in the middle of a length, of a long length, because then things could be turned upside down and they could still match if the notch is exactly in the middle.
Yeah.
So here, if it especially with have a garment that had lots of panels, then you can just randomly place out the notches, but they have to be different on each pieces, so they won't be able to match together, because that's an indication then that no, these pieces should not be placed together. So I think I have that on my bilberry top, the one on the D cup version, where I have a seam along the front. So I have 2 notches on the front, quite far from each other, but just to make sure that you can't mismatch it with the back piece or something, like those notches are different, so you won't by accident pin the front and back together or something. So that's also something that could be in mind of a pattern maker, that they maybe don't want to place the notch in the waist, because that is in the exact mid. They want to place it a little bit higher or lower, just so it won't be able to flip around a pattern. So that's also something that we try. We with the notches, it's mostly in production. It's in the indication of how they should be pieced together. It's not where waist is placed or anything. It is the piecing together, basically. Usually it's in the waist anyway, but that just it comes naturally. But yeah, just so. This is how we think. It's good to know,
and you can
notches.
see that in sewing patterns as well. Exactly. So just because a notch is placed what seems roughly in the waist area or in the knee area, if it's not specified, or you can in some other way assert it in the pattern instruction, I guess it's safe. You should not assume that is at that spot, because as you say, it could just be a way, because notches have that. The primary function of a notch is help with sewing, so it's not to mark. It's just that it can do both things for the knee and waist, for instance. So,
I mean, it's very standard, again, that it is in the waist and knee, but it doesn't have to be. Like, it's not wrong if the notch is placed in some other places. The main purpose of the notch, is to be able to match pattern pieces together, so you know that they are correctly. And
also help distribute length and things like that. So make sure that the pieces align when you sew the side seams and whatnot. So
and we have a little bit industry. I mean, when they sew in the garment factories, they don't use needles because that's
pins?
just
pins.
Yeah, pins.
Needles, I guess they have to use.
They don't pin the pattern piece, like fabric pieces together. They are skilled. They are doing this all day long. They do it without pins in most cases. So then we have heard that there needs to be a notch with every arm length distance, so they still can make sure that here is a notch, so with the arm length away, so you can hold the fabrics together and like make sure that the fabrics is still aligning. So that's a little bit like there always needs to be a notch if there is real long seams that every arm length away. And this is something that, the supplier, they will do this themselves as well. If this is easier for them, they will do it on the pattern also. So maybe I don't specifically need to do this, but they will obviously do production adjustments to the pattern as well, so it suits their production line. But just a little bit fun, like
I love those
can have
behind the scenes,
very different meanings and.
that's why one of many reasons why I love doing this podcast with you, because I get to hear all these kind of tidbits from the garment industry that I would have no idea. So now I will know that, like, I can actually see the sewer, like, arm length, stretching it out. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, handling becomes really important when you're sewing for mass production. I mean, you have to have a smooth, frictionless experience. So the more efficient you can make every single step, that's crucial. So I guess that makes a lot of sense. But normally, because we mostly I talk, I guess, about home sewing patterns, and I've not seen the arm length gauge, but maybe we should try that. Maybe we should try it for a book. Like, oh, but why are the notches like? But don't you understand? It's an arm length. We're doing industrial garment techniques. They make no sense for home sewers, but we just wanted to add them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and another thing, we have mentioned this before also, but usually on the back piece you have two notches very close together, like 1 centimeter apart. What is it, 3/8 of an inch, to highlight that this is the back piece. So for example, in the armhole in the front is just 1 notch, on the sleeve cap is 1 notch on the front piece, and then on the back it could be 2 notches then. Or if you have a back yoke or something, then you usually have 2 notches very close to each other, just to indicate that this is the back piece, and on the front you have just 1 notch. So again, easier to match up, so you don't. And if you ever have notches like, these are not matching up, that's weird. Oh well, I'll just sew in anyway. No, double check it.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could say that had never happened to me, but it has. Not once, not twice. Way too many times.
Yeah, no, I think this is
and the worst part is that sometimes when you're sewing for a while, you get overly confident. Like, I know this.
I can do this. Yeah, no, I see pictures on Facebook when somebody's like, yeah, I thought it was a little bit weird, the notches were not matching up, but then apparently the sleeve was attached to the neckline. So yeah. Go figure. It didn't match up.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
So it happens.
Yeah. It's also comforting to hear that not it's just not me. And yeah, I agree with you. If there's one place there should be different notches on the back and the front, it's definitely on the sleeve cap and this arm opening, because sometimes it's kind of hard to tell just by looking at it which goes which. But if we have now established where on the pattern you need to do the adjustment, then what do we do on the pattern? What would you say? What are some methods of shortening or adding length on a pattern?
Yeah, I mean, if it's shortening, then I usually I would just fold the pattern, tape it so it stays in place. If you are a good person, you would add another layer pattern, paper pattern underneath or above, and draw a new smooth line, so the line is smooth. Obviously, it needs to be. Or you could just cut it straight on the fabric a little bit smoother. I mean,
the Malena method. Malena method. Wing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because, as you say, because it does change it. That's one of the problems that we will run into as soon as we fold or extend. We will that line, the shaping that we're talking about. It could be the curve that goes inwards toward the waist, for instance, or at the knee if it goes out or in or something like that. There is a specific curve. The inseam also has a very specific curve, and as soon as you either shorten or lengthen it, that curve is going to look a little bit different. I think it's called true pattern or smooth out lines. I think that's what we use in the Fit for Knits books. And and
there are really good rulers for this that has this really nice curved shape. So you really get helped with these rulers. They are basically form like an armhole curve basically. So it's really, those are really convenient to use if you do these adjustments. And it's depending again on where you have done this adjustment line. If you have done it straight across your thigh, and you do a lot, like you're shortening or lengthen it a lot, and if you do lengthen, I would just cut it open, spread them apart, and then, I mean, obviously, then I need to tape them onto a new pattern so it sticks.
Paper.
Paper, yeah.
Paper, yeah. Mm.
Paper underneath, so it so you have one continuous pattern piece. But like make sure to smoothen out it in a long curve. I mean, it can't be just a couple of centimeters above and below the adjustment that you smoothen it out. Like it needs to be a continuous nice seam, so it doesn't get weird, basically. So yeah, those rulers are really great. And here, like if you do on the sleeves, for example, where you basically have, usually the sleeve is, I mean, the inseam is straight from the bicep point to the end bottom hem sleeve point. They usually are straight with a ruler. So then it doesn't really matter if you adjust the length just below the bicep or just above the hem. If you still have a ruler, again, when you draw the new line, it will give the same result where you adjust the length in the middle or below or higher, because you need to have a ruler so it becomes still straight. You can of course have shaped sleeves as well. I mean, if you want to have the elbow tighter or bigger, you can make it curved also. So then obviously you need to be more mindful of where you lengthen or shorten it. But as a general guideline, it's the same thing here. If you straighten a pair of straight leg palazzo pants, it doesn't really matter where you add or decrease the length, since the leg is straight. So you don't need to do extra work. What I'm trying to say is like, be like very specific. It needs to be here or here. It's like, well, if it's straight, it's straight. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, very true. So, for instance, on those pants, usually it's just the upper part of the inseam that is curved, and then it's all straight from there usually. And yeah, very good point there, because you have to, if the redrafted curve is gonna end outside of that folded or lengthened pattern, it will be helpful that, as you say, that you insert some paper and tape that in place. If you just the small adjustments, like maybe centimeters, I personally don't feel that it alters that much, so I just compensate for that when I'm cutting. So I just like let my cutter slide slightly outside that fold, but I still keep an eye on the curve. And that's also a very good point that it should be like a gradual curve and not like slant out and then in again. So I'm with you. I don't always true smooth out lines on everything. You have to like use your
common sense. When it's needed, exactly. And when it's not. Absolutely.
And again, also it depends on how steep the curve is as well. It's usually sometimes it's so tiny, it's not really an issue. And
true. One thing to keep in mind here, if you, for example, want to adjust the front and back rise on trousers, if it is because you are taller or shorter, then I mean you can do as we say, fold away fabric in the straight across the hip area, basically. Do the same on back as well, so they are still matching the side seams, for example. This is adjusting to your body, so the waist will come in its correct place, the height. If you want to change a high-waisted trouser and make it into a more regular waist trouser or low waist trouser, you can't do this then, because then you are keeping the waist width. If you are just lowering it, folding away, the width will be too small. You won't be able to
unless
have it on.
You're absolutely 100% straight, like a rectangle, which no human being has ever been ever.
No, exactly. So just like here, it's so important to separate a fitting adjustment from changing the design adjustment, because I think this is the most crucial place of your body. A waistband, like there is not so much give usually. I mean, unless you have an elastic waistband or something. But for example, on a pair of jeans, like there are there is no wiggle room, basically. Like they are really made to measure. And if you then change the height, like design-wise, you want to change the height, the width measurement of the waist obviously needs to be changed as well to accommodate for if you are placing it lower, then it needs to be bigger waist. I mean, this is quite a big design change. So here, if you're a little bit more familiar with pattern adjustments, then it's no problem, go ahead. But if you're a real beginner and really want to just follow patterns exactly, don't do this change as a first thing. Again, a completely different thing if you need to adjust it because of your height. Then it's easier to just pinch away your add-on length to the front and back rise. But changing the waist placement from regular to high to low, it's a little bit more advanced. So
yeah. And it goes the same if you want, as you say, you want to do something lower, because I know a lot of people, especially now, are very into high waist patterns, pants, and again that goes, if you would end up just having too much waist, because usually you're very narrow at your highest waist point. So that's very good. You have to understand your body and redraft accordingly in those cases, and look at the width and not the height is the most important thing.
Yeah.
One thing that I had some issues with, I wonder what you think about, as I mentioned, my upper body is quite short in relations even to my height. So, for instance, for me, I always also have to shorten above the breast a little bit, especially with darts, because I do want the darts to point in the right direction, so to speak. I don't want to end up underneath my bust. And that means that I usually have to do an alteration at the sleeve opening, and shorten that. And at least maybe it's just a small one, maybe a centimeter or even less, and then you have to do the same on the sleeve cap. But now, as I've been going, I mean, I'm working out quite a lot, but finally, after decades, my biceps is getting a little bigger. Or maybe it's just age. But anyways, I cannot do that anymore now, because that will affect the armhole become too short. So that means I would have to redraft, right, the arm. So I have to shorten, but then I have to add back the arm opening, right? Am I thinking this? You understand what I mean? Because if I shorten the armhole, because I need to get the upper part of the garment at the right spot, then I also shorten the arm opening or the sleeves, and I don't want that. I want to retain the original
yeah,
sleeve
I mean,
opening.
depending a little bit on how the pattern looks. Yeah, but I think it will be like back and forth then. If you shorten it, just a t-shirt, if you shorten it first and then you lower the armhole, it will kind of be the same. I mean, sure, the waist and that ratio will of course have been changed then as well, but the armhole fitting will be more or less the same then, I would say. I mean, you can do shorten it across the chest to make the armhole a little bit smaller. Maybe you need to do a full bicep adjustment instead. I mean, lower the sleeve cap a little bit, but widen the bicep a little bit. I would suggest that that then in your case.
I'm going to try that for the next time, definitely, because it's been a struggle lately. I've noticed that the things are starting to fit a little bit tighter over that area, but I still need to do that adjustment. And that's also another tricky thing you might run into when you need to do those high adjustment is the neckline. So, for instance, if you have a neckline and you fold it up, you might want to retain the original length, or it changes things. So those are the kind of struggles, especially if the garment is a little bit more constructed, or maybe you're making wrap skirt or something like that. So I think those, when adding that's a tricky thing when you end up like altering the original design.
And this might be just a matter of opinion as well. I mean, for example, I'm wearing the Bilberry top right now, and it has, I'm like trying to move up so you can see on the screen now, but it has like it has a pleat in the front, and then it's stitched down. So I mean, obviously if you're shorter, the stitch placement might be become way too low for you, and also maybe you don't want to have that much cleavage or something, so you want to make it a little bit higher up. This could also, again, be a matter of opinion, a design change, or just an adjustment for your body. Different reasons, but yeah, you might want to adjust if you have a longer, deeper neckline. You want maybe to adjust that as well, or if you want to make it deeper, of course. So yeah, you might have to adjust that as well, even if you maybe don't do so much fit changes, but it's just the neckline you want to change. You can change that as well. Then you just need to be, I mean, for the bilberry, there is no problem making it not so deep or making it deeper. You can easily adjust that. But if you have a neck band or something, you obviously just need to adjust the length of that one as well. If you make it less deep, it will be shorter. You need to redraft the neckband length, or if you make it deeper, it needs to be longer, of course. So they still need to match. But changing the neckline, I think that can, be a very common. It doesn't have to be a fit issue. This could just be a personal opinion thing that you want to change the neckline, so, and it's easy to do. Like don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because that's something I realize as well. Because the neckline, obviously, if I don't alter the neckline, it's usually gonna show like the top of my bra, which I'm not like too crazy about, especially because I wear such basic bras. I'm like, maybe if I've had a better bra game, I would show them. But yeah, so those are very that's what you, I guess you would say, you don't know what you don't know. So eventually we will realize more and more things about ourselves and our preference and what we like and what not. So you kind of, it's hard when you're starting out to know all these things, and you have to learn as you go. And of course we have our book Fit for Knits as well, which I think is a wonderful guide, regardless if you're sewing with knits or with woven fabrics. We talk about all these things in the book, because I just understanding your proportion, that is such an empowering thing.
Yeah.
Because when you start to think more in terms of proportions, rather than, oh, I am not the standard size, or I'm wrong in there, or I'm too wide there. There's no such thing, or too wide or too narrow. It's just that we all come with different proportions, because we're obviously unique personalities and persons, and there is no body that is exactly the same type. And I think, to me, that is such a revelation that I keep like coming back to, and what I find is so empowering about sewing, because then we have, unlike when we go in and shop something in stores, we do have that power. We can say, okay, my arms are like, they needed to be extended a little bit with the fabric, and this is like no issue.
And
when you don't sew, you will have to be like, oh, okay, I have to like, because I have some taller people in my circle, and they just have to like accept they don't sew. Okay, the arms will always be too short, and the t-shirt hem will gape, and that's just how it is. And I mean, that's kind of sad in a way that that's the way it is, but you understand it, because they have to serve a certain specific audience, and it's very difficult to deviate from that. But we understand that it's all about proportions, and we can alter them, because we do have that power.
Yeah. Some things are easy to adjust on an actual garment, but some things you can't really adjust them. I mean, for example, you can't really. It is very difficult to adjust the height of the upper torso on a dress, unless you want to have a seam under the bust so you are able to lift everything up and remove that extra fabric, but you need to have the seam there. But doing on the pattern, I mean, such an easy fix. I mean, it's super simple. You need to do it on the front and the back, and you're done. Yeah. It's that simple. So I can understand that it revolutionizes the world. Then if you have like not a difficult adjustment to do, but it just needs to be done, and it's not done on the ready-to-wear garment. So to be able to do it when you sew, it's so good.
Yeah, so I think this is definitely something that we love coming back to, and And to bring back to your original point here, that you always start, before you start doing alterations, try to figure out where you should place different things. Where are your unique heights, and use those good guides, and maybe helps, because I found it's very helpful to have someone else measuring, because I personally found that I took a pattern making course, and then as student, we helped each other. So I have this, and the good thing about the height thing is that I guess we shrink a little bit with age, but it doesn't change as much, because a lot of like width measurement, they can like expand or shrink or whatever, but the height measurements, it's not like my back height is very different now from maybe 10 or 15 years ago. So, but I find it really helpful to have someone else to take those measurements, rather than trying to hold a tape and trying to figure out where is my waist exactly, because then you're going to be a couple of centimeters off probably, and that's going to mess things up later. So I think ask anyone, just be clear on exactly where, and show them some diagram as well if they're not interested.
And I mean, a helpful tip here is like you always need to have a neutral posture. Like don't exaggerate in any way. Like just stand in your specific neutral posture, and you can have like a thinner elastic band. Just place it at your waist, tie it so like together with a bow, like no need to cut or sew anything, like just have it there so you can see where your waist is, and then it's so much easier to measure, for example, your back length. And if you have a tight t-shirt on, it's usually where the t-shirt neckline ends, and then it's easy to measure down to the waistband. Or the elastic band that you have placed in your waist. So that's a very common thing to have that temporary elastic in your waist when you do all these measurements, because then it's also easier to see if you need to see front, side, back. Then you can also see so much with your posture. If it's completely straight in the waist, I mean your posture, or if it's tilting forward, backward. These kind of things also affect the fit so much. So it's just good to be aware of how your body is looking without any judgments, obviously.
Yeah. And that's a great thing, because when you nail and understand it, I think it's going to be a revolution. If you haven't really dived into this height alteration thing, I think it's going to open so many, because we always talk about, we're going to do like a full bust adjustment, or full hip, or flat butt, or whatever. But actually height is so much, it's crucial, I think, in order to understand fit and get it really good. And
and especially with balance, again, posture. Maybe depending on your posture, I mean, this is very common now when we are sitting on our computers, that the shoulder are becoming forward, the back is becoming longer compared to your front. Like it's not really neutral posture, then it's a little bit forward. But then maybe you want to, and I mean, this has become your natural posture then that you want to adapt according to. Then maybe you need to shorten the front armhole depth, the side depth, whatever, however you want to say it. But you don't want to shorten it at the back, because you don't want to remove anything there. You just want to shorten it in the front. Or vice versa. If you have your shoulder very much towards the back, then maybe you need to shorten the back armhole length, but not the front. So this specific adjustment, you don't need to do the same front or back, since it's not the armholes that are sewn together on the front and back, but you just need to remember to do something similar to the sleeve cap, because that's the one that is gonna match. So those the length still there needs to be matching. So here really, I mean, you can do height adjustment also just based on your posture as well, of course.
Yeah, because that's my next thing now, because I said that it doesn't really change much, but it does change sometimes, and it does change, unfortunately, so I take it back a little bit. But I will now, because I've noticed exactly this now on my knit tops, that I'm getting that sloping shoulder syndrome. So I will definitely need to adjust them accordingly. So yeah, it's a thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's it changes
And it's not
with
getting better
age,
with
and I
age,
mean we can adapt
yeah.
the pattern adjustments as we grow, of course.
All right then. Again, check out our book Fit for Knits, and also, of course, any pattern making book. I think it's also good. I mean, even if you don't want to make your own pattern, I think it's pretty good to actually have just one good, solid pattern making book, because it does, talk a lot about this stuff and understand what are the key measurements, how to measure, how to alter. So I think it's very good. I mean, even if you don't want to draft your own pattern, I think having one pattern making book can actually make a big difference in understanding these things.
Absolutely. And just having like the basic knowledge, or like, because I think those are very clear, like those books, you get a better understanding, and then you understand the patterns a little bit better and how to adjust them, and how you can alter, even though you don't want to, as you say, construct it yourself, but you understand it a little bit better then. So I can definitely recommend
and also
them.
I think the good thing about pattern making book is also when most pattern books they have you draft a sloper, as you said, of your own personal measurements or whatever person you're drafting the pattern from, and that is also such a nice way, because again it's a judgment-free situation, because it's just objective. It's just a bunch of measurements, and those have to be a certain way, and then you just place them up and then you draft it. So it's a very neutral way of approaching fit and understanding. So I think that's also very good about having those solid pattern making books, and understand things like crotch length and all these kind of measurements. So yeah, very, very good investment. And also you can usually buy them secondhand and whatnot off eBay and Amazon and things like that. So they don't have to be that expensive, I think. An old pattern book, it's the rules. So that's one thing about pattern making. I mean, when it does, now we have knits, which all the pattern book doesn't cover, but apart from that, they are usually, it doesn't really change. It's such like,
in general, no. The body, the measurements, they do change.
They do change.
They do change, because the standardized body is how do you say, middle ground of all the different, and as the body changes over time, the measurements are usually one thing. The waist used to be a lot narrower before compared to now, so that kind of so if you are following, if you want to compare your body to a very old body measurement list, those kind of I would use a little bit more updated measurement list, because
I agree with you.
Because clothing lines obviously don't follow the old body measurement rules. They follow more updated. They try to be obviously as updated as possible. So that kind of thing has changed. But how you construct the pattern, the basic general, how you do that, those are not changed. It's just the body measurement that might have been updated.
Yeah, so that's why it's so good. We're going to link to that reference you said.
To Alvanon, yes.
Yeah, that's such a good tip. All right, then. I think we managed to cover this in a hopefully understandable manner. And if you want to get in touch, you can either email us at stitchingtalespod@gmail.com, or you can go over to our YouTube channel, Stitching Tales Pod, where you can comment, or you can also follow us on Instagram. And if you have a sewing friend that you will think will find our podcast helpful, fun, entertaining, maybe shocking, I don't know, then please share, because we love to get more listeners and viewers, because we definitely want to keep going. So if you want to, please spread the word.
Yes, absolutely.
All right then. Thank you so much for listening or watching. I am Johanna Lundström.
And I am Malena Hjerpe. Bye bye.
Bye bye.